The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how you doing?
Hello, Mike. Hello, listeners. Welcome to hell.
It's one of those episodes.
It's one of those episodes. If you're here, you're serious. We appreciate you being here. But as we get into the weeds a little bit this week, I think just based on what's happened to the Suns in the past few games, this is going to be a fun one. Maybe not so fun one, depending on how you see it.
Yeah, it's not fun to, one of the things we're going to have to lead this podcast off with is the fact that, the best player on the Suns, in my opinion, now has suffered an ankle injury right during the most difficult stretch of the season for this team, and right as Bradley Beal gets back to play, and it's like they're cursed to never play together, and that, I think, is definitely no fun. There's no way to spin that in a positive way, so we have to talk about it for what it is. But yeah, we did get some news about that today. So for those, if anyone missed it, Devin Booker 2 games ago in a Houston Rockets game from hell that we watched on playback, stepped on Royce O'Neal's foot and rolled his ankle forward, which is never good.
With 1 minute left in the game, mind you. 1 minute left in the game is when this happened.
In a game that was essentially over.
This was the game from hell.
Yeah,
because really Josh Okogie clocked Yusuf Nurkic in the face.
Yeah,
and gave him
Bradley Beal was ejected
gave
for
him a
some
neck
weird reason.
Bradley Beal was ejected for an insane reason when Jalen Green was not. Royce O'Neal was given texts for celebrating as soon as it felt like the team maybe was back into it. Maybe they could win this game. The officials kept ripping it away. And then multiple Suns role players injured multiple Suns starters. So it was just a horrendous situation all around.
And even Royce, I wasn't sure if he was going to play in the next game against OKC the next day, because Royce O'Neal, in the same injury, in the same collision that led to the Devin Booker injury, was also on the floor holding his leg for a while there. So it really was just a complete and utter game from hell. And then, of course, they're playing on the second night of a back-to-back. If you look at the OKC game this month, you could call that a schedule loss before the weird game from hell the day before. But once that happened, it was going into that game against the OKC Thunder, the best you could hope for is the Suns hit a ton of threes and find a way to win against OKC, because the way that OKC has played this season has just been they've completely outclassed the Suns as far as consistency and playing well. Not to mention, the Suns are old. They're young. Second night of a back-to-back for the Suns. Young legs versus old legs. It's just a game where you look at the odds are significantly against the Suns. And they started out well. They played well to start the game. But yeah, the Thunder are just really, really good. You really saw what a great team actually looks like in this NBA if you don't watch the rest of the league.
Yes, it hurt to come back a couple of times. First, to get off to, I think it was a 10-2 start against the Thunder, and just a great first quarter in general, and then to also take the lead and go on a run against them in the second half, and then to lose it all. I will just say about the Thunder, they've had a fantastic season. They look like a great team. They have benefited from quite a bit more injury luck than the Suns have, because Shea has basically not missed any games all season. Chet Holmgren has, I think, not missed any games all season. Jalen Williams has missed maybe 4 or 5. But they are not having the same quote-unquote big three issues that we are having at the moment with the Suns. They're not running through the same perpetual cycle of we're back, it's over, it's so over, we're back, it's over, it's so over. They are not having those issues. And, good for them. They shouldn't be having those issues because all of their good players are 25 years old or younger, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and they're just really good, consistent in their shooting, consistent in their defense, and the Suns can reach levels where they look like a contender and can reach levels where they look like they should be in the lottery, and any given night, depending on injury luck, can look even worse. And this was a game where they did both. I mean, they had levels of this game that they reached at times where you're like, man, this defense just looks really great. And, obviously this is a game that would have greatly benefited from Devin Booker playing, as we saw in the game. When it got close, it was like, okay, this could have been the thing that pushed it over the edge and gives the Suns the chance to win it. Which I'm grateful for that actually happening, because the Suns started off well, and people online were already asking if Devin Booker was a problem with the offense, and then the Suns scored like 12 points in the second quarter. So I think we got a pretty good answer for that in this game. And it's just, I think it's the type of time in the season where, because of the Devin Booker injury, because Bradley Beal has been in and out, and Kevin Durant has played like he has, which we're going to cover extensively in a second, I think it's just one of those times where, as Suns fans, and even me and you probably as people who cover the team as well as we can, take a step back and try to just sort of acknowledge everything that we're looking at right now, which is a team that has not shown any level of consistency over and over and over again throughout the season, partially because of injuries. I'm not going to say it's entirely because of that, or that it didn't play a factor. It clearly did. That is now facing the toughest month that they can possibly face, and has lost, or has only won one game since the All-Star break. And, what are they going to look like at the end of this month? It's fair to ask that question.
500.
They're probably going to be in the play-in, right? I mean, it's hard to not say that they're going to be in the play-in at this point.
Yeah,
and I think there's probably no chance they drop out of the play-in race based on just where they are in the standings right now. But to believe that they're going to make it out of this particular month as a top 6 seed seems a little bit unlikely. A lot of that depends on what other teams do as well. It's possible other teams will continue to lose.
There are other teams that are struggling. The Dallas Mavericks continue to struggle. Who else are we right up against? The Kings and the Pelicans.
Pelicans continue to play okay.
Pelicans are playing okay. Like I wouldn't, say the sky is falling, just on the basis of these most recent 2 losses. And, there are some positive signs that you can look forward to. But yeah, of course, the upcoming schedule is really hard. And what we know about this team, given everything we've seen from them this season, is that their heights are really good. They're capable of reaching a height, but they have not played at that level with any sort of consistency, that health-wise or like otherwise, just their play on the court. That really makes you believe in their ability to even like win a playoff series right now, because they need to beat a good team 4 times. And it's hard to believe in that ability right now. Now, they could prove us wrong in the next month, and they're kind of going to need to, sometimes without Devin Booker, which is going to be even more challenging. But as we look at the games coming up, their next 5 games, you've got Denver tomorrow or Tuesday, whenever you're listening to this. Denver on Tuesday, Toronto on Thursday, that's a break. Boston, Cleveland, Boston. Now, one potential break is that Cleveland game, Donovan Mitchell just went down with an injury. So maybe the lack of Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs, the lack of Devin Booker for the Suns, that cancels each other out, and you kind of have an easier game against the Cavs. Who knows? The Cavs have struggled a little bit out of the All-Star break. But those 2 games against Boston coming up in the next 10 days or so, probably both going to be without Booker. And Boston has not lost a game since February 1st, Mike. Like, you can't, obviously that's comparing them to the cream of the crop. Boston is far and away having the best regular season of any team in the NBA right now. It's not close. But to believe that they won't go 0-2 against Boston in the next week and a half, they need to play that one of those games, either at home or on the road, perfectly in order to win those games, because Boston has been healthy, and offensively they're clicking, and their defense has always been phenomenal. So, yeah, it's going to be really challenging. And of course, like even Denver tomorrow, Tuesday, that's going to be really challenging as well. And then it doesn't get easier from there. We've got a lot of teams in the back half of March that are going to pose a threat too.
Yeah. It's incredibly tough. And I don't know, I don't think we mentioned it yet. The news on Devin Booker from Shams Charania was 7 to 10 days out. So we know up to 2 weeks of games, he's going to be out for. So for sure a week, probably more. with the injury. The way it looked, it didn't look great, so he's probably going to miss some of those games without question. And I'm looking at some of the easier games, like against the Spurs. I don't know if anyone's been. I don't know if everyone's been keeping track of what Victor Wembanyama has been doing lately, but
they are. I think
it's absurd.
It's absurd. It's been well covered. It hurts because so the Suns have 2 games coming up against the Spurs. We lost the 2 games against the Spurs at the beginning.
Were the cupcake ones when they were bad. Yeah,
the cupcake games at the beginning of the season before Wemby really found his footing, and now that he's found his footing, all of a sudden the San Antonio Spurs aren't such a joke anymore. Now you can still definitely win those games. Those are still easier games than say, the Nuggets or the Bucks or the Celtics or these other teams that we're going to be playing, but they're not cupcake games anymore. To your point, they're not games against the Pistons or the Washington Wizards. That's for sure.
It's going to be tough. And I think one of the things that we have to talk about, I teased it to start the podcast, is Kevin Durant. Because we're at the point without Devin Booker that this team, now Bradley Beal is back. And I don't want to, by the way, make this a conversation just about Kevin Durant not playing well too, because Bradley Beal hasn't really played well as well. As much as he had a pretty good game yesterday, he had 7 turnovers. The difference is Durant's played 54 games for the Suns this season. Bradley Beal's been in and out, no consistency playing with any lineups, no consistency playing with any teammates. There are reasons that Bradley Beal hasn't quite found his footing for this team yet. For Kevin Durant, I think we're at the point with him where we have to talk about who he is, how he's playing, what that looks like going forward, and what the Suns need him to be in order for them to reach their highest heights. Since the All-Star break, Kevin Durant's averaging 24.5 points, 7 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 4 turnovers in that time. His shooting since the All-Star break, 44% from the field, 26% from 3, and 75% from the free throw line. All down significantly. It's only 5 games or so it's not like this
games,
massive 6 games. It's not a massive disaster for him, but he's not. I have more, but he's not playing well right now. And I don't know, if you want to talk about what you think about Kevin Durant this time, feel free.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I think everyone's, we got some requests, obviously, to talk about this on this episode because I think it's on everyone's minds. I'll say first, in KD's defense, it says something about the player we're referencing when a slump for him is still averaging 25 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, whatever it was per game, right? Yeah. Obviously, even his lowest level, he's still capable of being an impactful basketball player. But, those are not good shooting splits. And we are reaching a point in the season now where it increasingly feels like, I don't know, maybe KD is being worn down by the sheer amount of minutes and the sheer amount of burden that he's had to shoulder already this season, and you worry about his durability, moving forward in the playoffs. I don't know if it was that he played too many minutes at center or just that he's old and just cannot shoulder the same burden, or maybe this is just a 6-game shooting slump and he'll be fine starting tomorrow against the Denver Nuggets. But mainly what I think about this KD stretch, I think we have perhaps entered a new era of Kevin Durant's career now that he is on the Suns, where at his best, we all remember the Kevin Durant of the past 10 or 15 years, kind of like he still is this player who is maybe the best difficult shot maker in the NBA, or one of the best difficult shot makers in the NBA. We all have fond memories of him being an incredible isolation scorer. I think at his best today, when the Suns are fully healthy, and that's the big if Devin Booker and Bradley Beal are also on the court and Kevin Durant is in a situation where he can benefit from their gravity and he is not constantly having doubles sent at him, he can continue to be as effective an isolation player as anyone in the NBA. He can get his shot off over anyone as long as the coverage is single coverage. Unfortunately, the Suns have not been healthy this season. Again, stuck in that perpetual cycle of it's over, we're back, it's over, we're back. And so one of those 3 guys is always out, and that means that whenever Kevin Durant is in that situation, he continues to have doubles thrown at him. He continues to not know how to handle it. He posts up from 16 to 18 feet out. He makes bad decisions out of those doubles. He throws dangerous cross-court passes. He launches the ball out of bounds. He's posting up way too far in order to like get himself good looks. And the biggest thing, he's not creating advantages against the defense. He's not creating open shots for others when he plays basketball that way. And it's continuing to lead to these high turnover performances and increasingly these low efficiency performances for him as well. The Suns need to change the way that they play offense around Kevin Durant, and it's always going to look easier. Again, if you get the big three together, then it's always going to look easier. He can kind of settle back into the way that he's used to playing. He can play more iso ball. He can get his shots off over the defense one-on-one. But when he is stuck in these situations where he is doubled, it just does not look good, and he just cannot be the guy at this stage in his career who initiates all the offense. It's not an effect. We have more than enough evidence at this point that the Suns cannot play or do not play their best offense when Kevin Durant is playing in that manner. That is my initial thought. That's my initial jumping off point, Mike. Where do you want to go from there?
I think that your comments about the shooting is right. I think that as much as you can worry about Kevin Durant's shooting, I think it's probably just a minor slump for him since the All-Star break. 44, 26, 75 shooting splits since the All-Star break. I think that there's a chance that he can get better, but I do want to point out 54 games played this year. 47 games played last year, 55 total games played 21-22, 32 total games played in 2021, 19-20, so 2019-2020, 0 games played. That was his Achilles injury year. 78 games played his last year in Golden State since 18-19. Durant is about to, in his next game, equal his most games played in an entire season since 2018-19. And it's just a little bit interesting that we're starting to see him almost look like he's hit a wall, and I don't know if this is true or not. But when looking at the stats, it's the longest season that he's played in 5 years, essentially. 6 years, 6 seasons total. So the question of wondering if that's starting to catch up to him has crept into my mind. I'm not sure if it has or it hasn't. We'll see how he's capable or able to shake this off. And if he starts to play much, much better after this, then obviously it'll be nothing. But it stood out to me when looking at the total number of games played. And so that makes me wonder if there's something happening there. Secondly, I looked at total number of games that players have had 5 or more turnovers this season. Do you want to guess where Kevin Durant stands on that list?
Is he first?
He's second, just behind. Actually, do you want to guess that? Just behind one player in the NBA, a player who dribbles the ball quite a bit.
Trae Young.
Trae Young's number one in the NBA in total games with 5 or more turnovers. Kevin Durant is number 2 in total games with 5 or more turnovers, with 18 games with 5 or more turnovers in his 54 games played so far. Tied with Cade Cunningham, just ahead of Victor Wembanyama. And Kevin Durant doesn't even lead the Suns in touches. He's second on the Suns in touches per game. And he has 18 total games with 5 or more turnovers. The Suns in those games are winning just a third of them. They're 6-12 in the games where Kevin Durant has 5 or more turnovers. The Suns as a team have turnover problems. Don't get me wrong. The turnover problem that the Suns have is not entirely on Kevin Durant, but I do think that he is the worst offender of that on this team so far this year.
He's by far the worst offender. And look, Bradley Beal just had 7 turnovers yesterday, did you say? Or 6 turnovers or something?
7. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen it from Book too, but I think the thing that gets me about KD's turnovers in particular is, again, it's about creating advantages. I mind less when you go through a guard and you have a perimeter-oriented attack. Guys are driving the ball. They're trying to generate open shots, or first of all, they're trying to get into the paint. They're trying to touch one foot in the paint, and then either they can attack from that position or they can kick out to a shooter. And if they turn the ball over from there, if they get doubled or trapped, at the 3-point line or whatever, so be it. And, I wish Brad was a little bit better as a playmaker. I wish even Booker sometimes was a little bit better as a playmaker. I think for guys who are raised as shooting guards, they're doing the best they can. KD, by contrast, is not driving the ball. He's just posting up. Like we've seen it again and again.
The turnovers are often 5 feet behind the 3-point line. They're not. It's not like he's getting to the rim and getting picked at the rim or something like that. It's just all over the place, losing his dribble, losing the ball on his gather. Those are sort of almost regular turnovers, but then bad passes, unable to handle. I mean, we're at the point where he's essentially one of the greatest scorers of all time, and he's not handling double teams well at this point of his career. And there are times of the season where I think you could say, give him time, new teammates, he'll figure it out. And there are times where it becomes a trend. And I think at this point, it's a trend. It's something that we've seen enough, I think, to raise a level of concern about it and wonder, I think, how the Suns can react to that. Now, one way the Suns can react to that, have a point guard when Devin Booker is out. Like, that's one of the main obvious ways that they could definitely help somebody like Kevin Durant. Take the ball out of his hands, give him the opportunity to catch the ball, and work off of the catch instead of starting the play with him on the ball, giving teams time to double him really quickly. Now, that's one way they could do it. A little too late for that at this point, right? You can't really do that. I think when all three are in, we've talked about it before, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, there's less turnovers, there's more shots going in, there's more space, lots of things work better. When one of them's out.
When one of them's out, it all falls to shit, dude.
Yeah, it really does. So that's one way. The other way is overall changing how he plays. Now, this is a really complicated conversation when it comes to all-time greats. You're talking about a coach, essentially, approaching him and saying, hey, this isn't working. We need you to change what you've been successful at for years. And you know how that usually ends? The coach being fired. That's usually how it ends.
Yeah.
But there are points in players' careers where they have to change. There are points where they have to make decisions to change in order to best fit the team. The reality of the way the Suns are built, the reason they're struggling right now is because they are an incredibly top-heavy team that three of the guys at the top make the majority of the salary. They're the one percenters, if you will. They make the majority of the salary, and then the rest of the team sort of fills everything out with what they can. Obviously, most of the guys are on minimum contracts. They're not going to be successful creators because those are doing that is how you make the most money in the NBA. So what that means is, in order for them to win games, the guys at the top have to play extremely well, and that includes Kevin Durant. So it's a difficult thing to say. Do we want him to change, or do we want to keep trying this to see if he can get better at it and actually change in a way that allows him to keep doing what he's doing without the turnovers and with higher shooting splits? Because ultimately, if he changes and he's no longer Kevin Durant the way we know him to be Kevin Durant, do we even have a chance to win? I guess is the question.
I think potentially we do. Look, if any one of the big three is going to be out for long stretches of time, then it's season over. Right? Then, it doesn't matter. If you're still holding on to this idea that you can have all three of these guys completely healthy for a playoff run, I think there is a path forward to build a remarkably successful offense that just tweaks the tendencies of each of the three guys a little bit. And I think that's kind of, that's maybe the most important thing in terms of getting the messaging out to KD is it's not, we want to take the ball away from you and give it to Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen 10 more times a game, right? That's not necessarily it. I think it's, transferring the balance. The guy I look at mainly, because we're talking about guys who need to live up to their $50 million contracts, I think it's Bradley Beal. I think maybe we're talking about transferring the balance of power a little bit, back away from KD and a little bit more towards Bradley Beal, where Beal has spent, even in his healthy games this season, a lot of time deferring, a lot of time being the third scorer who plays off the other two. And maybe, honestly, at a certain point, we'd have more success if we had a perimeter-oriented attack based on allowing Beal to cook a little bit and be the 43-point, scorer that he was in that one game against the Washington Wizards, focusing on taking 20 or more shots in a game. Not that you want to ignore KD. You don't want to ignore KD in the offense. That's not what I'm saying. But fewer possessions where KD initiates and more possessions where Beal initiates, and then KD runs off a pin down and catches at the elbow. He's in motion. Or KD sets a screen and either makes direct contact on the screen or he slips into space. Then he catches. He's in motion. Or have him run off a screen and shoot a three. Have him finish in transition. Just do more to work a little bit moving without the ball and not just automatically giving it to him with 18 seconds on the shot clock. 18 feet out. Okay, here's the double. Up. There's the fucking, you try and space out, make a swing play, and then the defense gets a hand on it and it's another turnover, right? We got to switch up the way that we're playing a little bit. And if that means more reps for Booker and Beal, I think there's a path forward. I think maybe you could make that work. Beal, as we know, we talked up a very big deal about him when we first got him in the summer, saying that he was going to be the guy on this team that drives the most, because that's who he was in Washington. He was the guy who's capable of driving the most. As it stands right now, the Suns are 23rd in the NBA in drives per game. They're 27th in paint touches. There are teams that can get away with being bottom 5 in those stats and still being awesome. Like the Denver Nuggets are one example, because they have a freaking savant in Nikola Jokic, who they could just dump the ball to in the post every single possession. But the way the Suns offense is working right now, Kevin Durant is not Nikola Jokic. It just doesn't work in the same way. So we need to transfer it back a little bit more towards the perimeter, focus on getting into the paint, generating open shots for other guys. KD's 25 to 30 points are still going to come, but he just needs to refocus how he's playing a little bit. Can we get that message across? I honestly don't know, Mike, but I hope they make a sincere effort at it.
Yeah, last thing on Kevin Durant, just from the way I'm looking at it right now, is if this is just what it's going to be for Kevin Durant, there's obviously the Suns have him signed for this season. They have him signed for 24-25, and they have him signed for 25-26 as it's under contract for that amount of time. And thinking about him as potentially this is what he's going to be, like a player that struggles to handle double teams as well as he did early in his career. Now, maybe there's a way for the Suns to change their offense that fixes that. Maybe there's a way for better players to be around, or maybe it is a coaching change that ends up changing just how the Suns are able to handle double teams as a team when Kevin Durant is double teamed. But if this is who he is, it does complicate what the Suns have to do, and obviously everything gets complicated beyond this year when looking at future off seasons. But it's going to become really difficult for the Suns to maneuver and make small changes around these guys in order to get better year over year, as Kevin Durant next season, every season he's going to be the oldest he's ever been. That's how aging works. So
aren't we all?
So he's going to be the oldest he's ever been every season. And that means that next season he's going to, 17th year in the league or whatever it's going to be for him. And ultimately, the best case scenario for the Suns is that he starts to just play better. Or, there is another scenario where this is who he is sometimes, but he does have another level he can reach at times, hopefully in the playoffs. It's just not something that he can reach for extended periods of time over the course of the regular season, and these guys just play better in the postseason. Ultimately, that's the real goal of what these trades were made for, and why this team sacrificed their young players and their slower development players in order to have the best possible players now to capitalize on what they can do in the playoffs when they're playing the most minutes that they can play. We'll see what it ends up being like that. I think at this point with this team, if they start winning a ton and they are consistent in the playoffs, and they play really well and they remain healthy, then we're watching them do something that they haven't done the whole season, not consistently. and that would be a surprise to me. But they are really great players who have consistently played better in the playoffs in Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and even Bradley Beal. When you go back and look at some of his playoff stats, raised his game in the NBA playoffs. So we'll see if that's something that they can actually end up doing. Anything else on that before we move on?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind. I just want to say that, like, if the Suns find success moving forward, they're going to find success due to Kevin Durant or thanks to Kevin Durant. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be the whole equation, but he's going to be playing his part. You're going to want to draw on his like massive amount of experience and his wisdom and his clutchness and all of this stuff that has made him a tremendous basketball player over the past decade and a half. And as long as he finds that durability or sustains that durability, rather, he can find that level occasionally in the playoffs. I do believe that. On the other hand, there are very few graceful exits from this league, even for legends in the history of the NBA, man. There just aren't. Yeah. Like, even if you look at LeBron James right now, 39, almost 40 years old, I think one of the most graceful examples of aging we've ever seen in this league. He's still averaging his 25, 7, and 7 a night. And even with LeBron, it's like, okay, well, if the Lakers want to pay LeBron his $50 million and build a team around him, so you're just resigning yourself to being like a play-in team? Is that just how it is now? You know, it's like even LeBron cannot just carry an entire franchise on his back anymore. That's just not how it works in your late 30s. And so at a certain point, Kevin Durant's going to be making $50 million. I don't think he's at LeBron's stage yet. I think he's probably still a little bit better. Although who even knows? I don't want to get into that conversation necessarily. I'm just saying it becomes more and more difficult to truly build your identity around these guys at age 36, 37, and on.
And to keep the conversation on turnovers going here, everyone's favorite topic, it's not just Kevin Durant. Like I said, I think he is the worst defender so far this season in that his turnovers are, first of all, often and confounding all at once. But you know, Devin Booker needs to be better. I think he, as far as the increase of assists compared to his increase of turnovers, has done a very good job so far this season. He's got to do a little bit better on that front. Bradley Beal has to do a little bit better on that front. I think you can make the case that Jusuf Nurkic has to do better. I think with what he's asked to do and the skill set that he has been gifted, I think that we're probably getting the best we could possibly get out of Nurkic so far. But as a team, what could they do better? I think Bradley Beal probably summarized it best when asked about the turnover problems for the Suns. Shoot more. Put the ball up on the rim more. Stop overpassing. Stop overdriving. If you have space, let it fly. Sometimes it's as simple as that. You're shooting on closeouts that aren't close enough to actually impact your shot instead of driving. Do that as often as you possibly can. Dedicate yourself to shooting as many threes as possible, because often those drives and kicks are the turnovers. When you take those shots, some of them will go in, and also it will create more space for future drives, which will lower turnovers for yourself as a team. I appreciate that Bradley Beal said it that way. I think he was talking probably mostly about himself. You know, he had a good game scoring-wise in his last game. He's not a point guard. We went through this with Devin Booker early in the season, and that's not, you know, that's a feature, not a bug, if you will. That's good that he's capable of scoring. It's good, and we need him to continue to be himself in that same way. And so sometimes that means shooting shots that sometimes will look a little bit confounding to people at times. Get used to it. They need to shoot more. They need to shoot on bad defense a little bit more. Now, anything else on turnovers?
No, I don't think so.
Let's talk about, can we just quickly just mention the fact that Jusuf Nurkic had 31 rebounds?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If there's one player to cast flowers upon over the last week of Suns basketball, it is undoubtedly Jusuf Nurkic. He deserves his flowers. Yeah. I hope every fan sees the impact that he has at this point. And I'm a huge Jusuf Nurkic fan at this point in the season. He's just... I liked the trade from the beginning, but he's won me over so hard, even past there. Like, he's awesome. He's just so awesome.
He understood what we were looking at, obviously, with the assignment, if you will, against the OKC Thunder. They don't play with the traditional big. They play with a really skinny a big who's tall, capable, and amazing in Chet, but not a big, not anywhere close to anyone that can stop Jusuf Nurkic from getting rebounds. And the Suns won the minutes with Jusuf Nurkic on the floor, and he was really amazing in that game. And I think was playing well in the Houston game too. And I think there's a good chance the Suns would have probably pulled that game off had Jusuf Nurkic not been murdered by Josh Okogie in that Houston game as well. But it is a little bit frustrating just to know the extent to which the Suns have a massive problem as soon as he steps off the floor. You know, the problems that we talk about with the Suns not having a point guard, one of the reasons it works so well when the big three are available is Jusuf Nurkic. He makes it work in so many ways with his passing and his massive screens on the floor. It's one of the reasons why it doesn't work as well with Bol at center. When he's in there as well as he's been playing, he can't screen like Jusuf Nurkic because he's, a third of the width of Jusuf Nurkic, and Jusuf Nurkic
no hip width compared to his hips
or
are
shoulders.
They're little twigs, little twig hips.
So he just can't get those screens off in the same way. So it's been really, really vital for him to play well and to play not just well, but as many games as he had so far this season. I will say he is questionable tomorrow. Kellen Olson tweeted this out while we started recording. Just so you know, Sam, Jusuf Nurkic is now questionable tomorrow against the Denver Nuggets.
Well,
and now the extent to which the Suns are sort of they're out of any race to win a ton of games without Devin Booker, that's true. Might be doubly so for Jusuf Nurkic.
I'll just say right now, if Nurk doesn't play, we lose that game. Like we have not. We talked about this last week. We have not found a way to win a game without him because of what he's doing on a nightly basis. And what gets me too is just 31 rebounds when he has a strained neck, a sprained ankle, and a taped thumb all at once.
Yeah,
he's playing through 3 injuries at once. Oh, calf tightness now too? Well, that's kind of how it works when you keep having to play through 1 or 2 or 3 injuries, and now other parts of your body are constantly compensating and weakening, and something else breaks. They need if he needs rest, they need to give him the rest, but Eubanks ain't it. So I don't know how we're going to win without him.
I think we're beyond trying Eubanks now to me. We're beyond the need for Eubanks. Try Thad. What was he brought here for? Maybe it's possible they're seeing stuff in practice where they're like, Thad is not it. He doesn't solve this problem. And maybe that's all it is, and that's why Thad's not playing.
Yeah, but if
there's any chance,
they barely practice. In season, they've probably gotten 2 or 3 practices in since Thad even got there.
If there's any chance that Thad could be better on this team, you got to give it a try at this point. Just move on from Eubanks. You can always bring him back if it doesn't work with Thad, but there's not a lot of time left in the season, and you have to see if there's something else other than Thad, and you can't make it Kevin Durant at center at all times. You just can't, because you can't sustain that for
you know who else could play center for the Suns? Who could start at center for the Suns even now?
Who?
Ishmael Wainwright in his return to the Phoenix Suns. We haven't talked about this yet, right?
No.
You haven't mentioned this? Okay. Well,
no.
I teed you up. Let's go.
There you go. Yeah, it was announced today. Shams Charania reported it. The Suns are waiving Theo Maledon. He played a few games and, obviously wasn't going to be part of the rotation, and bringing Ish Wainwright back on a 2-way deal. Couple of things interesting about that, but the first one is, first of all, it just makes sense. The Suns don't have a guy like Ish Wainwright on the team right now. As far as, we were just talking about the types of screens that Nurkic is able to set because of how wide he is.
The David
Ish
Roddy,
Wainwright's wide.
The David Roddy erasure. What is this?
He played minutes against. Okay, are you shocked about that?
Well, actually, I wanted to bring
concentrate.
that up. I had a theory that David Roddy played 7 minutes against the Thunder. He did not look good. But my theory is that was Josh Okogie's punishment for injuring our best player, Jusuf Nurkic. Was like, okay, dude, you're officially out of the rotation. I'm giving these minutes to Roddy instead.
Josh Okogie is out of the Nuggets game tomorrow, so it's possible that it was because Josh Okogie was injured. So he has a lower abdominal strain. Wow, I could not say that word. He's out after trying to kill Jusuf Nurkic, but you're right. David Roddy played. But now Ish Wainwright's back, and I think, a lot of people are like, why? And I think you and I don't have that reaction at all. It makes perfect sense to me. Another wing who could potentially play, who has played with some of these players before at the very least, and understands the system and is willing to work hard. Like, that's good for practice. It's good for games. And he's, ultimately a good vibes guy. It's not a big deal. You're waving Teo here,
Yeah, they're waving. That's the thing. They're waving Teo, and they didn't want to play Teo anyway. Here's the thing. Is Ish Wainwright good? No.
No.
He's not. I think this is mostly for vibes, and I think it's unfortunate. It says something also if Josh Okogie is really injured, and I know Nazir Little has been battling through injuries too, and Damian Lee is still not back, and we just got nothing at wing, guys. We have nothing. So if you have to bring in a guy who has some familiarity with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant already just for some emergency minutes, so be it. We could also say that other GMs are playing chess. James Jones is playing football. He's playing NFL football out here. He's assembling his ideal offensive line between David Roddy and Ish Wainwright.
And Nurkic, yeah.
And Nurkic. Booker'd be a mean quarterback. KD would be a mean wide receiver. I think, honestly, you put this team on a football field, maybe they'd do better at the moment. But yeah, it is what it is. And here comes Ish. He's back. Also, we've seen them, I will say we've seen them do this before. Remember Frank Kaminsky? Played through multiple contracts with the Suns and then got waived by another team. I think maybe the Sacramento Kings or something, and they just brought him back again. So it's not the first time that we're bringing back guys. Torrey Craig. It's a feature, maybe again a feature, not a bug, with James Jones that he has his guys and he likes those guys for the culture or whatever.
I like it. I honestly, I'm already like, let's try him at center when KD is playing. That's where we're at with Eubanks. He might be better than Eubanks. Like, would that surprise everyone? Not me. If you're just out there switching everything, he might be better. I don't know. Well, it wouldn't surprise me. Eubanks has been bad.
But maybe. The issue with Ish is he doesn't have any screen or he doesn't have any roll gravity because he can't finish at the rim. And he doesn't have any shooting gravity.
He has to go behind the three-point
because he can't shoot.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Kind of a problem, man. But yeah, if he just posts up in his corner and he actually is hitting his corner threes, then yes, he can have an impact.
I gotta check what he was shooting on corner threes so far this season. Do you have any idea what he's shooting on corner threes so far this season with the
Blazers? He played 7 games.
That's not going to be a great.
He played 7
35% on catch and shoot threes.
Yeah. Okay.
So far
here, I got it for you right here. If
he shoots that, that's fine.
Ish in his career, 37% on corner threes. If he shoots that, all right, he can stay on the court. 37 is good enough.
Yeah, I think that would be acceptable.
Here, in fact, I'll find you Josh Okogie's corner 3-point shooting percentage just so we have a reference point, because I'm sure Ish at 37 is much better than Josh Okogie, who for his career.
I wasn't even looking at just corner threes. That's just 37% total overall from the corners. From the left corner. I don't have it yet. I'm sorry. Feel free to look up Josh's. We'll talk about that.
Josh from the corner in his career is 30. For the Suns this season, 29.
Yeah.
So, a big difference right there if you're just going to put one guy in the corner.
Yeah, and Ish just doesn't have enough shots. Didn't play at all, basically, with Portland, so he doesn't have enough shots to make it relevant this year. We can look at last year's stats, but we all were watching last year. It's not like we were begging him to be on the court at all times. At times the Suns were a lot deeper of a team last year, though, so we'll see if he ends up making up any time here. I know Frank had some nice things to say about him before he was let go to Portland in that trade, so we'll see what ends up happening there. Any other thoughts? I know we're looking at a difficult schedule coming up. Any other thoughts on that schedule or any other of these other guys that have been playing lately?
You mean for the Suns? Any other guys that have been playing lately? Mm-hmm. I think maybe we threw some flowers to Yusuf Nurkic. The schedule, I think I already talked about. Next 5 games going to be really tough. Boston is probably going to blow us out two times. I'm really hoping that's not the case. But sorry, guys, I'm just going in with low expectations in those games and hoping for the best. The other guy I'll throw quick flowers to, though, is Royce O'Neal, who has been playing well since the trade. And specifically, I think, one point I just wanted to make quickly. There are some things that Frank is doing that are good that I think deserve recognition, where it's clear that he's experimenting with the team in a way where it's like he's preparing them for playoff basketball. I really like the way that now that Royce is in games where he's already logging heavy minutes for the Suns, having some games where he plays 30 or 35 minutes and has to start. When the Suns play a team that has a non-shooter on the wing, or even like a mediocre shooter on the wing, like we saw with OKC yesterday, the Suns are just taking Yusuf Nurkic or Drew Eubanks or Bol Bol, whoever their big is. They're having that guy, quote unquote, guard the non-shooter, but really just roam in the paint and continue to be a deterrent. And Royce O'Neal is the guy who's taking the screener and just switching actions immediately. They did it again yesterday with OKC, just leaving Josh Giddey alone. And like letting him shoot whatever he wanted. And then Royce O'Neal out of the gate was the guy who took on the Chet Holmgren assignment because, like you were kind of referencing before, Chet doesn't actually, he's tall. Like, don't get me wrong, he's very tall. He could grab offensive rebounds, but doesn't have a weight advantage over Royce. And so when Chet came to screen for SGA, that was just an action the Suns could immediately switch. Nurk would be roaming in the paint because he doesn't have to worry about Giddey and could just be another deterrent in there, like sitting in SGA's kind of in his lanes, making it difficult for him to drive to the basket. So I think there's good stuff. There are good foundations being built on defense. This doesn't work if you're playing a team that has 5 awesome shooters, but against certain teams that you could see in the playoffs, it might work. And I like to see A, Frank experimenting with it, and B, Royce O'Neal executing it, because I think really he's the key.
Yeah, it's on the other side of that. Grayson Allen has had an interesting few games here. Played probably his worst game against the Houston Rockets, and then was not great against OKC offensively. Came through a little bit more towards the end of the game, mostly when it was already over, but I thought did a pretty good job against SGA for the majority of that time if he was matched up against him individually. Mind you, SGA gets a switch and can kind of cook anyone else on the team when anyone else is matched up against him. But I thought Grayson Allen did a pretty good job just sort of chasing him around the court, doing his best to not reach and get easy fouls for SGA. And overall, I think has had an interesting stretch. You know, I think there have been times early in the season where one of Brad or Book are missing, and Grayson will score 25 or 30 and just sort of save the Suns for a game. Now, he hasn't done that yet. He probably will at some point in the near future. At least I hope so. But at the very least, he did play high-level, high-effort defense against SGA in that OKC game.
Grayson he's shooting 35% for the field and 35% from deep since the All-Star break. So again, that same 6-game sample that we saw with KD.
Yeah.
So that's going to kind of compound the impact of what we're talking about. KD's already not playing up to his standard. And now you have Grayson Allen has regressed to being an average three-point shooter when for 50 games prior to that he was just on fire.
Yeah, the best.
It's gonna make things even more difficult.
Yep, that's right. All right, let's take a quick break and come back and listen to a few voicemails that we've received recently, and we'll cover those before we get out of here. We'll be right back. Okay, 480-420-6553 is our phone number. If you ever need it, you could find it in our bio of our podcast account on Twitter. Call us anytime, day or night. Leave us a voicemail. We'll try to get to as many as possible. We haven't gotten to them in about a month, so I'm excited to get back into some voicemails that we've received recently. So let's get straight to it.
Hey, it's Connor from Omaha, Sunstan3 on Twitter. I was just wondering, what number do you think is most worn in the NBA? It has to be 23, right? I just want to hear your guys' thoughts. Appreciate what you do. See ya.
Thank you, Connor from Omaha, for that question. So Connor is asking, what is the most worn number in the NBA? And he posits that it has to be the number 23. I looked this up, Sam, and I know you didn't even know about this question. By the way, this Connor's question is from before the Suns started playing really badly, which I appreciate that we had one to listen to that wasn't all doom and gloom. Before we get to the two other voicemails that we have after this, do you have a guess whether it's 23 or not?
The probability between if it's 23 or not, I'm going to guess it's not because there are a lot of numbers besides 23.
And there's
Am
a
I
lot
correct?
of players who played
Okay,
before Michael Jordan in the NBA. So
This is NBA history? Okay.
Yeah. I have it right here.
Yeah.
I looked it up. It's an article on basketballnetwork.net. So hopefully that's legitimate. It's from November of 2023. So it's this season. And number 23 is not the most worn number in the history of the NBA. It's number 12, which apparently has been worn by 426 players in the history of the NBA. And 23 is not in the top 10. The numbers that are in the top 10, so after 12 is number 11, 397 players, number 5, 372, and then from there, number 3, number 20, number 15, number 14, number 10, number 7, and number 22.
That's really interesting.
And none of these are numbers that I would have guessed. Maybe 11. I feel like there's a lot of 11s. Every
7.
team has an 11.
I would have guessed, wait, is 7 there? Yeah, I would have guessed like 3, 5, 7. I guess just is the reason that it's not like number 1 or number 2 because a lot of teams have retired those numbers.
I don't know.
There have been fewer chances, to give those numbers out to successive players.
Like
I feel like that
if
has
you're
to be
Devin Booker, like for example, for the Suns, one player has worn number 1 for the last 9 years. Right, so you don't have a lot of opportunities for other guys to wear number 1.
You're saying good players wear single digits and bad players wear double digits? You might be onto something there, honestly. That could be it.
I think it's what it is, because like number 11 and number 12, 426 players have worn number 12.
So
those got to be guys that have been
dog shit players. No,
yeah,
it's 426 not great players. How many good number 12s can you think of? I think of Dwight Howard.
Yeah,
and then I'm not sure who my next.
I'm sure there's people screaming at their radio or their iPhone right now or their phone. Number 11, I feel like that's one of those numbers where I'm like, there's just every team has a number 11, and I feel like that's one of those numbers that gets cycled in and out of players in the NBA. But I found that to be pretty interesting. So Connor, sorry it took us a month to get to that question, but I remembered it and I researched it, and I was happy that I found an answer for you. So thanks for asking us that question. All right, let's do a few more.
Hey, Mike and Sam. This is Pete, also known as Plex from Peoria. The vibes are in the gutter right now. I think we're all feeling a certain way. So I wanted to be a little bit more positive with this question. In the last, 3 years, so since the Suns have been good, 3.5 years, who have been your favorite role players? And not Mikhail or Cam, those guys are really, really high end. So like, I'm talking the Damian Lees, the Jay Crowders, Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon. Looking forward for your answer. Bye.
Thank you, Pete.
Shout out Plex from Peoria for the question. happy to indulge. Mike, you want to start first on this one?
So he's asking, who are your favorite role players from about the last 3 seasons? And he took away a Mikhail and Cam. Like, it would obviously be Mikhail for both of us if that restriction wasn't applied, right?
Yeah. But yeah. I think, a case could be made that Mikhail was more important than a role player on the Suns.
He was like a super role player.
He was a super role player. Yeah, it's a weird distinction, but I understand what he's saying there. Do you have like an instant name that comes to mind? I've got a few.
The 2 players that came to mind for me first were Jay Crowder, because I just think he was really important defensively, always talking on defense, and just kind of fun to root for as a guy who was a little bit unhinged. And obviously he is a role player for a reason, in that he's kind of boom or bust on certain nights. But that's kind of what makes him a good role player. Someone willing to take on the other team's best player defensively and even capable of switching made me like him a lot. The other player was Dario Saric that came to mind for me, as just that season where like the first 50 games or so, he was just unbelievable. Every time he was on the court, the Suns were just killing teams. I just really enjoyed that. The type of player that he was, capable of shooting, driving, passing to cutters, passing to shooters, getting rebounds, pump faking 5 times, falling on the ground. Maybe that part was a little less fun, but for a stretch there, I had a lot of fun watching him. And I have one more player that I want to mention, but I know I'm going to mention him. It's not the last 3 years, but I know I'm going to mention him on the next voicemail, so I'm going to save that one until we talk about that one. So who are yours?
Okay, go for it. Yeah. Again, this is not in terms of like guys who are the most important to winning necessarily always, but just kind of my favorites. Cam Payne, I think you got to start with. He at his best, playoff series against the Clippers, stepping in for Chris Paul, not playing in that one game, and where he had 29 points to 9 assists, and then just a lot of other moments during the regular season where he would do his thing and found basically a second gear that a lot of other players on the Suns at the time couldn't hit. He was just so fun to watch. He was also just a great vibes guy, good for the culture. Another guy who I think was good for the culture was Frank Kaminsky, who coincidentally I did mention earlier in this episode. Crushing beer cans at the after party when we won the Western Conference Finals, when Suns fans were welcoming the players back to Phoenix. I think that's when that was. Frank Kaminsky, legend for that. And the third guy I would just mention is Langston Galloway, my guy. Only played here for one season, made a lot of
Should have known.
Tweeted the same thing every day. Another day to be great. And you know what? He was right. It is every morning now I wake up with a little bit more appreciation for life, thanks to Langston Galloway and his reminders for me to take it all seriously and to understand that every day is a blessing. So thank you, Langston. You really changed my life.
Two guys I want to give a shout out to: Javon Carter, JaVale McGee. I know that was probably 3 seasons ago, maybe more. 3 seasons ago. So I don't know if they count.
Langston was 3 seasons ago too. So
yeah. So I also. JaVale was fun. JaVale's legitimately fun. I'm surprised he's been kind of useless on every team since he's been here. And he was like a good center for the Suns for a while. And then Javon Carter, just like anytime you have a player coming off the bench that's like 100% effort at all times, fans end up liking those guys, even if they're not ultra great as players. He's had a pretty good career since he's left the Suns, though. All right, let's move on to this next one. Here we go. This is the last one.
Mike and Sam, I got 2 questions for y'all. 1, do you still think Kevin Durant is a top 10 player in the NBA? So I think he's cooked. 2, pick a backup center from Suns past to be the backup center on this team. They cannot have played with Devin Booker. Thanks, guys.
They could not have played with Devin Booker. I did not see that part of the question when I was researching this before. This.
What was your answer? JaVale McGee, Aaron Baines,
Aaron Baines.
Like yeah. Well, we'll get to that one next. No name attached to this question, but we know who sent in this question anyway.
Yeah.
I think we have a good idea.
We'll let the Discord know. I mean, they'll know. We don't have to say it. Me mentioning that, they'll know.
Discord knows.
Yeah.
Do we think Kevin Durant is cooked? Is he still a top 10 player? Mike,
There's
this
a
is
massive
the hot stuff
gulf.
that we had to lead off the episode with.
There's a massive gulf between cooked and top 10 player. You know that like 400 players are in that gulf. And I think he could be.
I think he could be the 11th best player in the NBA and still sufficiently not be cooked. But yeah. I guess, first of all, I'm not interested in doing the whole. I think look, he's definitely not a top 5 player right now. I don't think he's that. Once you get into the 6 to 15 range, they kind of all blend together with the way the league is right now. And I'm not interested in ranking, like dividing that into tiers.
He's not a top 10 player right now.
No, right now, no. The way he's playing now, no.
Yeah,
but I just on the whole, his entire body of work this season, you can make a case he's top 10. You can make a case he's like 12th. You can make a case he's 15th even, or you could make a case that he's 8th. I don't know. I think he could be anywhere in that tier. And I think that doesn't make him cooked. It does make him maybe not good enough to be the number 1 on a championship team. I don't know how many players really are. Like that's a really difficult
matchups are going to matter a lot. Matchups are going to matter a lot. Let's just say that. I just think that there's so many good young players in the NBA that it's really difficult to make the case that there are players, even Kevin Durant or even LeBron James, are top 10 players in the NBA so far this season. Now, if you're just looking at the entirety of their careers and you're talking about what these players have done in the playoffs in the past,
of course,
and you're factoring that into what they are this season, then of course you can make that case. I'm not going to do that just based on how they played so far this season. He's got to turn the ball over less in order to be in that conversation so far this year. The Suns have to be better with him on the floor in order to be in that conversation so far this year. Now, this conversation could be entirely different if they were just healthy all year, right? And all of a sudden, all the on-off
Yeah.
numbers look good because he's either playing with Bradley Beal or Devin Booker whenever he's on the floor, and obviously everything looks better. So context in these ranking conversations always matter, but he's nowhere close to cooked. He's an incredible scorer so far this season. He's still extremely good at basketball. So I don't want to say that if I don't think he's been a top 10 player so far this season, I don't think he's close to the other end of that spectrum. He's much, much closer. In fact, a good 20-game stretch put him right back in that top 10 player conversation this season. He's a lot closer to that than being on the cooked end of the spectrum.
There's a lot of players I could ask you to compare him to right now, but I'm doing this one because it feels the most fun.
Okay.
Do you think Jason Tatum's a top 10 player?
It's hard because I don't really watch the Celtics. I know they're good. It annoys me that they're good, so I don't enjoy watching them. So I just avoid watching them entirely.
Well, and so much of his success is based on being just on like
context dependent,
in
right?
the perfect context, the perfect team role players for him, and not a team that needs to have 350 million players all clicking and then everyone else is on a minimum deal, but like just has kind of, well, although they are paying $50 million to Jaylen Brown, admittedly, who maybe doesn't always live up to that contract, but mostly like just has a really great team context with a lot of role players.
Like if you switch
who are playing
them
above their worth,
and Durant was on the Celtics,
who gets better?
They might be better. I don't know. Maybe not. People will probably hate me saying that. I haven't watched enough to really say that. So I think that
I don't know. I think it's really close. I think Tatum's offensive ceiling is far from being the most impressive thing about the Celtics, right? That's kind of always been their big question mark is Jason Tatum, and there's also the question about Jaylen Brown, but is Tatum specifically like the guy who can lead them to a championship? And I think that remains the big question about them. But I just wanted to throw you that kind of curveball question because I knew it would make you sweat a little bit. What about like?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm not gonna throw you more names.
Well, no, go ahead. You can if you want.
I don't know. Like, is Donovan Mitchell a top 10 player this year?
Yes.
You think he is?
Look
and
at
Kevin
how
Durant's not.
The way that
do you realize how many people just unsubscribed from our podcast feed hearing you say that Donovan Mitchell is better than Kevin Durant?
The Cleveland
I'm
Cavaliers.
Kidding. That's not what you said exactly. I'm twisting your words.
The Cleveland Cavaliers lost two of their best players and got better because of how good Donovan Mitchell was playing for them when those guys weren't on the team. And that seems like it should matter in the context of we're talking about the Suns being unable to win when they're missing any of their good players at all. And I know they're probably more deep with guys who make sort of mid-level salaries than the Suns are, of course, but it seems to be a relevant part of the conversation, at least so far this season. It does not mean that I think Donovan Mitchell will be better in like a playoff series than Kevin Durant. And I think this is an important context for what Kevin Durant is right now and who he is. He is a player who has the ability of playing like a top 10 player. Not everyone has that ability, but he does have that. And that means and he's 35. So that means at times he will be able to reach that level for extended periods of time. And at times he won't be playing like that. That's what happens to guys towards the end of their career. It's really a normal part of this process. And I think it's an important part to point out that he will and he is capable of getting to that level. And I hope we see it more often than not. And more than anything else, I hope we see it for extended periods of time in the NBA playoffs.
I like how we've gotten to the point in this conversation. It's like the tired Wired meme where it's tired is Donovan Mitchell better than Devin Booker. Wired is Donovan Mitchell better than Kevin Durant. We found a new name to compare him to. It's not just Don versus Book anymore like it was for 6 years straight. Credit to us.
Backup center that has not played with Devin.
Do you have one?
Has Channing Frye played with Devin Booker?
Dude, no, Channing Frye hasn't played with Book.
That's the guy.
Because remember, I think what people always forget is the 09-010, because Channing had a couple years after that too, where he was a starter for the Suns. But the Western Conference Finals run, he was coming off the bench, and specifically, I think people always forget that Jaren Collins started at center for like 10 minutes a game in that playoff run.
Yeah.
Which is and Amari played at the 4. And so that's the other thing.
Channing
that was
back
after
then played
Robin
at the 4.
Lopez was injured because Robin Lopez started a lot of those games too.
Yeah, Channing played at the 4. Robin Lopez sometimes when he was healthy played at the 5, and then Lou Amundsen could sometimes play at the 5 too. But Channing's your guy, I think. Like Channing, in a modern context, would be awesome to just have him launching threes.
Yeah, I mean I wanted to pick Aaron Baines because he's the best mixture of can set the same screens that Yusuf Nurkic, but also when he was on the Suns was for some reason a really good 3-point shooter for a short period of time. So, and there's not a lot of guys when you go back to before. You can see me on the screen now, Sam, going back to previous seasons. There's just not a lot of guys when you go back in the history of the Suns that could make threes as Boris Diaw. Did he come off the bench?
He wasn't. I mean, he'd be amazing. I thought it had to be like someone who was a backup. Boris was not a backup.
I don't think he ever really was a backup.
There were a couple. There were a few games where he came off the bench here and there, but mostly he was a starter. The other guy who came to my mind, Book has mostly played with decent backup centers. Like we've mostly gotten our act together in the past 6 or 7 years. For a very long time, basically all of the 2000s and half of the 2010s, we had horrible backup centers every year. One guy who I did like, if I could just throw him a quick shout out, is he played on a bad Suns team, but Jermaine O'Neal. Do you remember when Jermaine O'Neal played on the Suns?
Yeah,
he was
I do.
good.
It was an awful
Jermaine
team,
O'Neal,
yeah.
Awful team, but Jermaine O'Neal was on the Suns for one season, did his thing, cooked in the post a little bit, blocked some shots. I would sign Jermaine O'Neal to a 2-way contract right now if he wanted. So open invitation.
8.3 points per game on 48% effective field goal percentage. So not perfect, but yeah, that's fine. That would probably be better than Eubanks. Yeah,
that's 2013 NBA basketball, baby. It would these days he would shoot threes. Actually, did Jermaine O'Neal shoot threes like in his prime? Can't remember.
No. The most
these
he topped
days,
out in 3-point shooting is 0.3 per game, so 1 every 3 games.
Yeah, he was such like a low post or mid post kind of scorer. He would cut out all of the mid range shots, and would shoot 35% on above the break threes. Jermaine O'Neal was also always really good at getting to the free throw line. He would totally kind of cook, get to the free throw line, play at the elbow. I don't know. I think he could have done it. He played well for the Suns that one season. I mean, we had a weird stretch where we gave Jermaine O'Neal a contract. We gave Michael Redd a contract, I think, during the same era, and he played okay basketball for the Suns off the bench. Just kind of these former 2000 stars who were basically washed up, but who were signing with the Suns specifically because of the reputation of our training staff. It was like a very specific era.
Channing Frye's the guy, though. The Suns just are, I mean, I'm going to talk about it again. Suns are desperate to have a guy who can shoot threes. We saw Mike Muscala check into the game against the Suns for OKC. That'd be the type of guy. Now looking at it, if Eubanks is going to be this bad, they should have just signed Muscala and cut Eubanks. Force his hand, force Frank Vogel's hand to play somebody other than Eubanks maybe at this point. That's the only way to get it done. All right, we'll be back this week. We missed our last week episode of Patreon due to scheduling issues, but we'll be back with the regular Patreon episode after that Nuggets game, probably sometime on Wednesday. So if you want to sign up, patreon.com/thetimeline. Shout out to the people that continue to stay subscribed to our Patreon, even during the rough stretches. We appreciate all of you. And definitely check us out. We'll be on playback at some point this week. We haven't figured out when, but we'll talk about that. Thursday. Okay, that sounds
Thursday
good.
night against the Toronto Raptors. Let's do it.
Perfect. Let's do Thursday against the Raptors on playback, and keep an eye on ethicalhoops.com. Sometime over the next few weeks, we might have some new stuff there. So we appreciate you all, and we'll be back very, very soon.